It's funny for all of you out there that college football continues to change in so many different ways. You know, we got a 2-minute warning now. We'll discuss that here today. We have radios and helmets, which I'm actually not opposed to. You know, we spoke with LSU head coach Brian Kelly on that situation, and he was the one pounding the table for radios and helmets. But, you know, it's crazy to me that all the different leaders of college football continue to change the sport, and yet we don't really know who a lot of these leaders are. Is it Greg Sankey? Is it Tony Batiti? Who is it that is making all of these changes? We'll talk about that here today. Oh, by the way, the NCAA just said, screw it. We are not investigating NIL. We stink. I mean, come on, man. So many different things happened over the weekend that we will get in touch, or we will talk about throughout. Also, we told you, we were asked last week to talk about the Ole Miss Rebels. We will give our breakdown on them. Are they a playoff lock? Now, their schedule is a little bit favorable than some may believe. Now, they got LSU in Death Valley. A lot of you that are in Louisiana will probably know that that game's probably going to be at 7 o'clock, deep Death Valley in October. If you've ever lived in the state, like which I do right now, it's going to smell like bourbon. It's going to be at night. Man, I wish it was just on Halloween weekend, though. You know, the legend of Billy Cannon. But nevertheless, we will talk about the Ole Miss Rebels. Do have Georgia Bulldogs, but they have them at home. Can the new portal additions for the Ole Miss Rebels get them into the playoff and maybe over the hump? Could they play for the SEC title? Who knows? We'll touch on that here tonight as well. Also, Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports. We'll talk to him. We're actually going to go to him a little bit sooner, I believe, because he's in here with us. We'll just talk some Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava, new dude, under center. Really interested to hear what he has to say about him. Also, regular season Rick. It's our good friend Bill King, who've had on the platform, calls him regular season Rick. We might talk a little bit of basketball, but spring is starting. Football is here. We're a college football show. We got to talk about that with him. Excited to have Dave on with us. We'll round it out with your questions, thoughts, and concerns. Anything that you have the thoughts, questions, concerns on, you could send in a super chat on YouTube. You know it helps us so many different times when you do that. And if you just have questions, let's talk a little bit of college football. We will do that. Also, a very massive weekend for college baseball. You know my affinity and love for college baseball. Big weekend for the Tigers. Big weekend for Georgia. Georgia taking down Georgia Tech. So a really, really great overall weekend. I will say we were not able to go live this weekend. It was the Mrs. birthday. We went out, had a nice meal, had some drinks, and it was nice to get away from two kids under 4 for about an hour and a half. I got to admit, it was nice to get away. All right, let's get to a couple questions. We'll have Dave Hooker on the other side of the break. Rob Boudreaux says, unfortunately, I'm having to listen from the hospital. Well, I do hope you're okay, man. I do hope that you are okay. But he does say hello, everyone. Hope you get well. Chris Lomax says, let's go. Good to have you in here, Chris. Chance Babin says the Lady Cajuns ending the Oklahoma 71-game streak. Now LSU is the only undefeated team. That is true. That is true. Only undefeated. It's crazy that you can go on a 71-game winning streak in softball. Very, very crazy. I got to admit. But ULL, also a really good softball program. All right. Let's get rolling. We had lots to discuss. Let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag and our new sponsors, our good friends over at J&J Exterminating. Guys, give them a call today. If you're in the local Louisiana area, you're in the Southeast, give them a call. Let them know that Blake sent you on by. Termites, pests, anything, they will get it done for you. That's, again, J&J Exterminating. You can call their number, their toll-free number, wherever you're at in the Southeast. You can call them with the 345 number as well. So looking forward to and thank them for joining us, especially for Around Your SEC and for AYS Sports that we do nightly. So let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Talk about J&J. Everybody do us a favor, though, during the break. Hit the like and share if you're on Facebook. Like, share to all those SEC groups, all those SEC pages. If you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and notification bell. 90% of you last week. 90. Now, one video went viral, which is probably why. 90% of you last week watched. Only 10 of you were subscribed. 10%. Maybe that was the viral video that did it. Regardless, if you're watching us live, hit that like button, that notification bell, and the subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Let's take a quick break. Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports, joins us next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
J&J has protected Louisiana homes and businesses for over 60 years.
Call him today, make the pests go away. J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
All right, we're joined here now by our good friend Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports. I got to admit, Dave, I've listened to you a lot, especially with us being on the big Bill King show every day. But good to have you here. Excited to have you. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. I certainly appreciate it. You watch that Bill, he'll get you into trouble.
Hey, I will admit I've gotten in my fair share of trouble over the years saying some things on the show. I got to admit, but it's always a good time, a fun time. Dave, thank you again for joining us. But I got to start off with this. Tennessee men's basketball on an absolutely fantastic run here in the regular season. As we start to round down the regular season, getting into tournament play, obviously going into the tournament, how far do you think that this men's basketball team can make it?
They can win it all. I mean, they have that type of ability. And then do you go into, I think you mentioned regular season Rick, which our friend Bill King likes to refer to. I mean, that the history is a history. You have several elite teams, and you have Kevin Durant on your roster, and you made one Final Four in your 30 years of coaching, 800 wins. So I think that's the biggest concern. Can win it all, but will they is a whole different question. And I think the one thing that separates this team maybe from some other teams is they've got a guy that's named Dalton Connect that I think can manufacture points if they're having trouble. So I think he makes them different, but your guess is as good as mine if Rick Barnes can get past the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. He hasn't very often.
Is Connect the best player in college basketball right now?
No, I'd probably still go with Zach Edey at Purdue just because of what he's established. He's a down-low player, and this time and age, he's really weird. It's like, what would Shaq do in the NBA now? There's not a real down-low back-to-the-basket player, but he's kind of that a little bit. So I understand him getting it. It's kind of like the Heisman. Some preseason hype probably helps.
Right.
But I think Dalton Connect can prove to be one of the most important players in the tournament if Tennessee goes through a slow shooting streak, which they're known to do.
Any thoughts on – I mean, I don't think they're going to be a top 4 seed in my opinion regardless, but do you think that they need to make a little run and make some noise in the SEC tournament? I don't think they do, but do they?
I don't think they factor the SEC tournament and conference
Right.
tournaments nearly as much as they did. I think it's the first win or two. As long as you don't fade out in the first round, I think you're fine. And really, you talk about putting together a bracket and the pod system they have to be able to do that from Saturday to Sunday based off who makes the conference championship game or who wins. It's pretty difficult to do. So Tennessee did end with Auburn and then Alabama in this past week, both ranked teams. They'll close with South Carolina on Wednesday on the road, and then Kentucky at home. That's as tough of a Final Four games as you're going to find out there. Those are all top 25 ranked teams. So I think personally, and Blake, I could be wrong, I think if Tennessee wins one of these games, and that would be 3 of 4 down the stretch, and doesn't fade out very first game of the tournament, wins a game, I think they're a 1 seed. I think that's base minimum for getting in, and they might be a 1 seed without it. But I think you need to do that to feel good when you lay your head on your pillow that Saturday night before Selection Sunday.
Well, I just, like you mentioned, I don't know if anybody has a tougher slate. And if you go 3-1, you win a game or two in the tournament. I mean, what else do they have to prove? What else do they have to do not to be there? Would be my question. Who would get it over them? Would be something completely different. It's going to be fun. I always love, sitting in the studio here and watching March Madness be crazy like it always is. So it's going to be a fun time. Dave, we're a college football show here, so I gotta move quickly over to
Sure.
football. Nico Iamaleava, I hope I'm saying his last name wrong. People tell me I say it wrong all the time. But Nico taking over at quarterback. Joe Milton out, Nico in. The bowl game was so good. I think that Nico did some very special things. I guess now going into spring, what are a couple of things that you're looking forward to seeing this spring?
Well, I actually had to do this so that I could completely get it right. So that's actually him pronouncing his last name. So I kept working on that, and finally I was able to get that Iamaleava. But I was the same way up until like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was the guy that covers Tennessee that can't pronounce the quarterback's name. So, okay, 2 things. One, I don't put a lot of stock in newcomers. He's not a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman, but I don't put a lot of stock in newcomers. I'm not the guy that gets overly excited about the first guy that walks in the door. So I hope people know that. Hopefully my reputation from covering recruiting speaks to that. But I've not heard one even slightly negative thing about this young man. I've heard that the way he commands a presence in a quarterback room, in a huddle, his physical ability is unquestioned. I think it's, and I compare it to Bryce Young. A lot of other people have too. His ability to, I would say, be able to bring the game in and be able to move forward, make decisions, to be able to decipher information quickly is going to be really special. So I say all that not to try to overhype the young man, because he's got plenty of hype, but I think he's going to be that special and that good. I think he'll be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the SEC, and I think he'll be one of the top 10 in the nation at the end of the year.
Dave, when he in the bowl game, a lot of young quarterbacks like to go right, go left. They don't like going back up through the middle. They don't want to get hit. They don't want to get tackled. And I thought it wasn't the big arm. It wasn't the running ability, because I feel like we all knew that was something that he could do. But him being able to continue to look down the field to try to get completions, I thought for a young guy in this offense, might have been the biggest thing that we've seen. There is some turnover at Tennessee. Some offensive linemen got a big 5-star in Lance Hurd, the transfer, with some new replacements, some new guys coming in. How do you see the offense as a whole being this year?
I think in early December, if you would have asked me, I would have said the offensive line could be a real weakness, because Cooper Mays at center was considering going to the NFL. And I think John Williams was considering that as well. So you have that, and then you have Lance Hurd come up as well. So I think that Tennessee's offensive line actually is a strength. Now, they've got a left guard that they would like to get figured out. They had Andre Currig, who transferred from Texas, and he didn't really hit the ground running last year. So no offensive line's perfect, but I think that Tennessee's should be a strength heading in. into this season.
Dylan Sampson, and you got Selden and Keith that will be back in the backfield. How big is it that Wright leaves with a more, I don't want to say younger, but more maybe inexperienced running back room?
Yeah, and he just absolutely lit it up too. I talking about Jalen Wright at the combine, ran a 4.38. So I think we underestimated him a little bit. I think that's very fair to say. I think that Tennessee, and I think earlier I said John Williams, I meant John Campbell. I apologize for that. I think that Tennessee at running back should be good with Cam Selden as far as an all-around, can do everything, speed, size, ratio type of back. But I think Dylan Sampson's going to be their go-to guy because he's one of the team leaders. He's small. He's on 190 pounds-ish, but he is a guy that can make people miss, and is probably the most dangerous player that Tennessee has with the ball in his hands. And Khalifa Keith, who you mentioned, is going to be a short down running back, I believe, maybe even occasionally when they use a fullback or perhaps an H-back role. So Tennessee, along with Jabari Small, who went to the NFL as well, certainly took a hit in the running back room. I don't think there's any question about that. And with what Jalen Wright did at the combine, you've got to wonder if it's an even bigger hit than we thought. So, yes, Tennessee, I do not expect to be as explosive out of the backfield as perhaps they were a year ago, but their offensive line should keep them consistently strong up front.
Mike Matthews was a guy that I thought, at least for me, Dave, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the new incomer, the freshman, that could be something special. Do you have a lot of – I know you talked about you don't really put a lot on a lot of young guys, but considering how good he is and what he has been, do you – and in this offense that Heupel runs, do you think that he can be a contributor this fall?
I do, but I think you have to look back at Tennessee's history. So Matthews is a 5-star receiver, one of about 8 5-stars that Tennessee has been able to get under Josh Heupel. And I think he's very, very good, and I don't want to shortchange him at all. But here's a couple things you have to remember about Josh Heupel's offense. One, he tends to settle on the wide receivers. Now, the tight ends will alternate because they don't substitute during drives. Right. So he said because they don't want the defense to be able to substitute. So he tends to settle on the same 3 receivers. Now, the tight ends will alternate from drive to drive. Running backs are individual and different, depends how they feel. So you very easily, Matthews could show up and live up to the billing and not find a place on the field until garbage time in the second half, and that wouldn't surprise me. It's not to sell him short. I think he's going to be a very good player, but Brew McCoy is a receiver they have that I think is going to be healthy, and I think they'll have enough players they feel comfortable about where they won't have to go the Matthews route, but we'll see.
You know, it's interesting, Dave. A lot of things are changing in college sports. The microphone and the helmet mean one thing. I'm really interested about what Josh Heupel, who wants to run tempo and hurry up, would say about something like that. But what would you think for him? And I know that he hadn't really been asked. Maybe he has been asked. But with a style of offense like his, what do you think that this does for a Tennessee who get a helmet in the quarterback's helmet or microphone? Excuse me.
Yeah, well, he has been asked, and as typical, he said, "Oh, it doesn't make much of a difference." Because, by the way, if you haven't noticed it yet, now Blake, it will completely ruin all Josh Heupel interviews from this point forward. He is the best at saying stuff without saying anything at all, by far. Right. By far, and takes pride in it. Has even left the press conference saying, "Bet you won't get anything out of that." All right, so could it be an advantage that Josh Heupel's not willing to tell us about? Certainly. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think they're pretty comfortable with how they communicate. But if you're giving Josh Heupel the ability to do anything a little bit faster or a little bit more efficient as far as relaying plays, I think that's got to be a good thing for Tennessee.
I completely agree. I think it makes him a little bit more dangerous. I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to say anything. I just think it makes him – because, if your quarterback's able to give signs and you're able to change it, you can move even faster maybe if you wanted to. Who knows? Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports, with us. I know a lot of people talk about the offense, and I think this is a conversation that I've had multiple times about Tennessee. You bring in a 5-star guy like Jordan Ross defensively in recruiting, but then you got to do like James Pierce. I think Dave, maybe you can correct me. I think that the thing for me that I've seen with Tennessee that nobody talks about, but just says, yeah, it's okay, cool. But nationally or even in the conference, Heupel's recruited pretty damn well on the defensive side of things. Maybe it's because of how explosive they are and what they do offensively. Secretly, they're building something really special on defense in Knoxville, in my opinion.
I think so. And with Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator, I think he's okay with this program being built the way it is, because you have to remember, when you built a program around offense as much as they have, you're talking about practice at times will get cut short so that you can work on this offensive play, whereas the defense has to kind of stand around and watch. So I think Tim Banks is comfortable with that. I think he's comfortable with the fact that he has to come up with twists and stunts, and he has to create big plays because the score theoretically should be on his side. He doesn't have to worry about the run as much. So I'd heard a couple of different schools made a run at him. I think it's big that they kept Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator. Now, as far as James Pierce, if you want to have some fun with your friends, say who's most likely on Tennessee's roster to be picked number 1 in the NFL draft, and the answer isn't Nico. The answer is James Pierce,
right?
Because I think he is that good. You're a little bit younger than me. You may not remember this name, but Leonard Little would be a comparison that Little's former teammates have thrown around, and he was a borderline Hall of Famer. So I think Pierce is very good. He had a off the field issue with a traffic incident in which probably he wasn't as compliant as he should have been with cops. But assuming that's not a sign of more things to come, listen, I'd like to be his agent tomorrow because I'll take 5% of $45 million, which I think is what the first pick in the NFL draft gets.
You know, with pass rush guys, Dave, and historically,
by the way, that's $2.25 million for those wondering.
Seems like you know the math very quickly. Maybe I've done it. Right. Or you're just a mad genius. You know, I mean, either one works here. You know what's interesting with him, and at least with this Tennessee defense, I was surprised how physical they were. You know, when you have a finesse offensive team, I think what gets missed is just how physical they are, and him specifically. He's not just a one-trick pony. He was doing a lot of really good things in run defense. What is the ceiling this year, in your opinion, for just Tennessee as a whole now that we have the expanded playoff?
I think it's ceiling, I'll say make the Final Four. I'm not going to say they're ready to win a championship, but I think potentially getting in. I don't think they're good enough to beat Georgia yet, but let's say they slip into a 12-team playoff in some sort of backroom way. Maybe they lose to Georgia. Well, they could lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game. Right now that they're just doing seeding instead of conference sides, it gets pretty confusing. So, but if they slip into the playoff, I think they could win a game. I still don't think they're as good as Georgia. So I would say that's the ceiling of being the second-tier team, and there's a lot of those. I mean, there's a whole lot of those that are second tier now with Georgia. It used to be first tier was kind of Alabama and Georgia, I thought, as far as over an extended period of time. Now you have Michigan and what they've done, and I think you got a lot of teams that are right there. They're going to be knocking at the door for Georgia. But right now, I would say that's Tennessee's ceiling at this point.
Last thing for you here, Dave, and I know it's been the talk of college football here with the NCAA investigation, them saying that they're not going to investigate NIL moving forward. I guess from where you sit and everything that's going on, what do you make of college football now? I mean, in my opinion, I don't know if we're ready in reference to there being no enforcement, but I also don't think it was right for the way that the NCAA has done things. My question being in all this, did this court case just completely eliminate, in your opinion, the NCAA? And are we ready as a sport to go into a place where there might not be any enforcement?
Here are my thoughts on this. We are in a place where there's going to be very little enforcement. We are in a place where the next story you're going to hear within 6 months is going to be, in some shape or form, the players are going to unionize. In fact, that's already in place with the NCAA. What would it be, 2025 football game, which with the video game is coming up by EA Sports.
Right.
So that's already in place. So you're going to have them unionize, and then you're going to have the schools actually take the money, because right now the school has to look at a booster and say, would you like to help build this building? Oh, wait, you're paying for the quarterback. Oh, well, we can't get that money. So you got two people going after the same money, which I guarantee you UT can say all they want about Spire Sports, but they don't like that because Spire Sports gets their cut. And that's Tennessee's Collective, for those that don't know. So
Right.
I think the schools will end up paying. And then that's where I get to the answer to your question. If the salary cap, which I believe will be set, is $10 million, and Blake Ruffino's ruffians of the New York State area, they spend $10 more, you get hammered like SMU back in the day. You get the death penalty. You spend $1 more than what you're allowed to spend, you get the death penalty. So does that mean the NCAA does that or not? I don't know. Does that mean they just run the basketball tournament, which is all they got left financially? Maybe. But when there's a salary cap, that's when enforcement comes back. And if you break that, you've broken the one cardinal rule left on the table, in my opinion.
Do you think that the conferences are going to be the one that unionizes with players, or is it just going to be a collective whole, in your opinion?
That's a great question. I get the feeling that other than the SEC and to some extent the Big Ten, that the conferences aren't smart enough, and there's a businessman out there that will end up putting it together, that they're more likely to do it. But I think Sankey's incredibly smart. I've not loved the leadership at the Big Ten, so one of those could come up with it. But you're right, and you started the show today with a great point. Who are making these decisions that we're talking about? I mean, I don't know who's making the decision of when they're going to pay, what they're going to pay, what the penalties could look. It's a very, very, very strange time.
Well, Dave, we're going to talk about this in about 20 minutes or so. But the 2-minute warning in college football. Okay, well, last year you told me that you wanted a running clock, okay, to shorten the game. I never complained about the game being too long. I mean, it's what I make a living in doing. Sure, that's fine. But I never complained about an extra 25 minutes. But then you had a 2-minute warning, which is a TV timeout that the NFL said last year that they got to reduce because it's a 5-minute and 50-second timeout, TV timeout. And I'm just like, okay, well, you're just adding more into it. But the thing for me, Dave, that I just question, like Ross Dillinger comes out with a report and says, industry leaders. Well, who in the hell is an industry leader? Because maybe somebody can tell me, but I just don't know who they are anymore.
In the NCAA, I don't know. The guy's name suddenly escapes me, but the NCAA president, his office is in Manhattan.
Baker.
Yeah, Charlie Baker. His office is in Manhattan. It's not even in Indianapolis. Now, Blake, I understand with the powers of connectivity, we can do all kinds of interesting things. But if you're going to run the NCAA for me, I'm probably going to ask that you come in the office. Is that too much? Is that too much? And maybe I'll give you a casual Friday, but how about come into the office?
Yeah, you can wear jeans to work on Fridays. Be like the rest of us.
But just Monday through Friday coming to the office. That would be great. If you don't mind, since you're the president.
Well, and look, I'm not a political person. I don't really care. But when you hired a political man to make political moves, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
So look, I don't care what side you lean on. It doesn't matter. Leave me alone. That's my politics. Leave me alone.
I'm the same way. So in 25 years, I've never shared my politics, be it conservative, be it liberal, whatever the case may be. And I made that decision 25 years ago when I started my career. So I'm not going to do it now. But I'll tell you this, they're both pretty good with getting an easy paycheck. Both sides are pretty good with calling the NCAA up and say, I could sit in my Manhattan office and think about football and you could pay me.
Well, and what's funny, my grandfather, God bless his soul, before he passed, he said that, Blake, here's the truth. They're all sitting in a ballroom drinking a scotch on ice, laughing at all of us. And so it is what it is. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us. This has been fun. We'll have to bring you on again when the season gets here, even maybe before that if Tennessee wins it all. Tell everybody where they can catch all the things that you guys are doing. Love the show and everything that you are doing as well.
Yeah, just go to offthehooksports.com. Offthehooksports.com. We've got content up there. We've also got some pretty neat things that we're proud of. I wrote a book about the 1998 National Championship Tennessee team. And then we've got our actual in our merch shop a picture of the actual lawsuit that was filed by Tennessee against the NCAA. So if you want a t-shirt of that, I'll probably hook you up with that.
Okay. So as soon, guys, the produce team, I'm going to go buy me a shirt. That's what I'm doing when I get off the show.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I may even throw in, I don't know if you're interested in reading about the 98 championship Vols, but I'll throw in a book as well. How's that?
Well, I wish I could turn the camera around. So in the studio here, we have all of our stuff. I have a bookshelf right here. I would love it.
Sweet.
I would love it. Well, my wife says, why does it take you so long to read? I'm like, well, I have a public school education, but at least I'm trying,
That's right. I got my PhD from Powell High Diploma after 3 years of PMS, Powell Middle School. There you go.
I feel that. Thank you so much, Dave. I greatly appreciate you joining us, man.
Be good, man. I'll be in touch.
All right, thanks. That's Dave Hooker from Off the Hook Sports. Fantastic, dude. Absolutely amazing. I mean, he's right, man. He's right. Especially there at the end about just where we're going and things, and going to be interested to see what Tennessee does just in general when it comes to on the field football wise. All right, so let's do this. Appreciate Dave Hooker for joining us. We got to go up to or down to Oxford, not too far from Knoxville though, from Tennessee to Ole Miss. Let me do this because we're going to do the preview about Ole Miss. We need to talk about college football as a whole. We're going to do that both next. I might just hit the college football stuff first before we get to Ole Miss. So let me do this. Let's reset here. Let's talk about our good friends at betonline.ag. We'll be back. Stay with us in the break. Hit the like and share. We'll be back. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. What am I doing? That's the wrong sound.
We're back.
I guess either one could have worked because the NFL Combine was this weekend. A lot of SEC guys made some really good headway. Brian Thomas, A.D. Mitchell, a lot of them. Xavier Worthy breaking the 40-time record. So, yeah, maybe either one could have worked. Let me talk about this really quickly. Now, we talked about this. And, yeah, guys, can y'all change that? Thank you. All right. So we just got done talking about this with Dave Hooker, but I kind of want to – and I know it's not completely SEC content or related, but I do think we need to talk about it because it affects college football and college sports. Over the weekend, it was announced that – and I think it's funny that these things are always announced on a Friday, the news dump. that college football is going to be going to having radios and helmets for quarterbacks, linebackers, and safeties, I believe, on the defense. I don't mind some of these changes that college football is making. I actually think some of them are really good for the game. Radios and helmets has been a very big success for the NFL, and I think it's going to be a massive success for college football as well. What I don't understand is, and what I think the biggest problem that I have in all of this is pretty simple and pretty plain, mainly due to the point that the college game in and of itself is completely turning into, without a shadow of a doubt, into the NFL. The rules are changing into the NFL, but they're not doing it in one swoop. They're not doing it in one way. They're doing it in increments. Last year, they started with the running clock, which I thought really did change the game in a lot of ways, but it is what it is. I don't really care as long as we got more football. That's what I always wanted, but they continue to change it. What I do think here is a more of a bigger and an overview of where college football is as a whole. I think that there's three major things that we have a problem with. Number one is I don't think that we have a voice in this sport that can help or dictate the rules and where the sport needs to go. We have a lot of different people in a lot of rooms and in a lot of different situations that are making these rules, even though fans are not asking for them. You know, there's not a fan that I've talked to, and look, I've done a lot of content, a lot of episodes about college football. Clearly well over 1,500 episodes talking to people who are fans of college football. And you know what's funny is maybe there was a little pushback on CBS with TV timeouts and how long it takes, but nobody really complained about football or how long it took because they are invested. They're going to watch the game. Why are people making more moves when there's no issues? There's never been an issue. Now, the 2-minute warning and what will be enacted, last year you make the clock rule change where you have a running clock to speed the game up 15 minutes only, I might add, only to add another TV timeout in a 2-minute warning, which, by the way, you add 2 of them, which is 10 minutes. So now you're back to where pretty much you already started, running clock or not, from the time that the game starts to the time that the game ends. It's all about TV revenue. And anybody that will tell you anything less is fooling themselves because the NFL sits there and says, we make billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars a year. And college football is wanting to move to that model where they make it. Now, I did think, and we'll probably talk about this a lot here tonight or tonight on Ruffino and Joe Show, but did y'all see the clip of UAB head coach Trent Dilfer? He was on with Cole Kubelik and Greg McElroy and said that the sport is moving more and more to the NFL. There's going to be a top 60 teams. We're going to be unionized and all this stuff. You have a sitting head coach who hears more things than me and you combined on where the sport is going. What is he hearing that we don't know or that we do know? I think that making the game, number one, more like the NFL. The reason I like college sports more than the NFL is because it's not the NFL. We don't have to be the same. But I think the biggest thing too, or number two, is that we just don't have one central voice that makes these decisions. Everybody wants their hand in the cookie jar to get their own things in the game, to make more money and to do things for them, which is their job, and I understand it. But I think the biggest thing that we have that is I don't want to say even necessarily hurting the sport, but it will down the line if you don't fix it. What I think is hurting the sport is, quite honestly, you don't have enforcement for a lot of things. You don't have enforcement for NIL problems, recruiting issues. Guys, all of these things are being taken to court, and the NCAA is not winning them, nor probably should they to some extent. But we don't have guidelines or enforcement or restrictions in college sports anymore. But it's not just recruiting and NIL and the portal that have been the issue. We don't have restrictions on how TV contracts are working. There's no union or players association that's able to help. Now, they have a players association in college football, but they can't do anything. I do fear where the sport is moving to. And I think that anybody who says to themselves that the sport is not moving into a direction or a place that, man, quite honestly, doesn't have massive issues. You know, everybody says, well, you know what, we'll have to go through this time and we'll have to fix a lot of these things, and we're just going to have to go through the lumps. Guys, are you 1,000% sure that they are going to allow a lot of these things to change? Because with all the money that's being made, are you 1,000% sure that leaders want to change things when they're filling their pocketbooks with that much amount of money or that amount of money? I don't know if they will. Now, I do think that you get a union, and I do think that there are big things that will come to the sport and things will change. But the direction of college football and where they want to go is not because it's all about the almighty dollar. And anybody and their mama that tells you anything different is lying through their teeth, because they all want it in one direction. Get it more like the NFL. They have a model that is working. They are making more money than us, and let's go in that direction. So, quite honestly, it is what it is. You know, there is one analogy that I would throw your way. I've used it before and we'll use it again. It's like the movie The Purge, man. When you know, I'm not going to get political, but I think some of you would even say that it's a different thing or a different thing you could say. When you defund enforcement, and I'm using my words here very particularly, when you defund enforcement, chaos ensues. Now, chaos was already being ensued because you had so many different issues on things you couldn't regulate. But I will tell you, if you don't get a grip on this soon, if the sport does not get a grip on this soon, and I'm not saying that I don't think you can have a restriction on name, image, and likeness. I don't think that you can have a restriction on how much money someone can make on their own name, image, and likeness. But when it comes to TV revenue and all these different things, man, I just don't I don't know where we're going. I love this sport with everything that I have. Guys, quite honestly, I had a successful career before starting a podcast and started talking about college football, a very successful career. But I gave all that up because this is what I want to do. I want to talk about college sports. It's the thing that I love most. Like, outside of my wife, my 2 children, my family, my and I even say my God, and the faith that I believe in, which is my right to even have. The second thing after all of that is college football and college sports. And I do worry often about the direction that it's going. All right. I do see some comments in here. Joe Mayu says, yes, NFL style, quote unquote, is taking over college ball without a question. Without a question. We're heading to a place, we're heading to a direction that people don't realize that we're going in. And I'll even make this a point here too. Everybody's celebrating the Tennessee victory over the NCAA. Now listen, I'm not a fan of the NCAA. Don't like them. The school that I cheer for, they've been really crappy to. They have not been good to LSU, the team that I root for. But the bottom line that comes down to it, I'd rather have some enforcement with a crappy organization than no enforcement at all. Because when you try to break away and defund, the only enforcement that you have, guys, who is going to govern any of this? Now, Dave brought up a point, our guest Dave Hooker, he brought up a point. Well, if we have a salary cap, and if you go over that, you get hit like, the death penalty like SMU did. The problem I have with that is who enforces it? Are we going to have the same issues that the NCAA is having now? Now, if you unionize, you can have a salary cap and you can walk through things. But, NIL, they're not going to be able to cap and limit NIL. There's no way. If a player goes to court on NIL, they're not going to limit that. They're not going to limit that. All right. Big J. Cole says, if we mold college football into the NFL style to, quote unquote, prepare players for the next level, then when we start changing high school rules to match college rules, where does it end? It's not going to end. It's not going to end. And I think that you're going to have 60, 64, 65 teams that are going to branch away from college football and do their own thing. And here's another thing, too. If you think that ADs and universities aren't going to cut other sports, you're crazy. Men's golf, men's tennis. Guys, maybe they don't all get cut, but you're going to make cuts. Swimming. I mean, maybe you're going to, I don't know. But I will tell you this, they're going to have to do something different with Title IX because Title IX is not enforceable anymore. There's no way you can enforce Title IX. None. We've seen that across the country. There's no way. All right. Let's get to Ole Miss. Let's go down to Oxford or go up to Oxford, down I-55, which, by the way, I-55 runs right through where we are. You can take I-55 north and head to Oxford and be in with the Rebels. Oh, excuse me. A little belch here. The Ole Miss Rebels were the team this year that shook, and I say this, shook the sport to some extent in the offseason. Maybe not shake the sport, but Ole Miss this year, what they've done in the offseason, the transfer portal, is nothing, guys, quite honestly, short of amazing. Now, I know, everybody knows what they did in recruiting, in the portal, and how they got to where they are. Now, I don't think anybody disagrees with how they did it. I don't think anybody really worries with how they did it because, look, that's how the portal is done. They go out and get guys like Trey Amos, the corner from Alabama. They go and get Amarian Walker, the DB from Michigan. But obviously they made the big additions with getting Prince Yellen from Florida, who had 10 sacks at Florida a year ago. They go and get probably the number one overall player in the portal, that being Walter Nolan. They go and get a receiver in Juice Wells from South Carolina, who a lot of people, if you remember last offseason, had a lot of high hopes for him with the Gamecocks, just did not come to fruition, was a little hurt, and that cut his season short. They go and get an inside linebacker in Chris Paul Jr. They added, especially defensively, a really, really, really good influx of talented human beings. Now, the question becomes, how quickly can this unit and this team come together, work together, and propel Ole Miss to where Lane Kiffin is trying to go? Now, Lane Kiffin has not made any bones about it. He has not sugarcoated it. He has not held his tongue with, hey, at Ole Miss, we cannot and we are not going to win the games like against Georgia or Bama or whoever it may be until we start getting more talented guys in here defensively. Well, their booster group went out there and said, well, if this is what you needed the money. You've won 10 games or had 2 seasons where you've won 10 games in the regular season. We're going to give you the money to go and compete and do this. The question is Ole Miss able to take that next step in 2024? I look at what they have coming back and what they have offensively. Now, they do bring in some offensive linemen that they did not have last year. You bring in Diego Pounds. You bring in Nate Kalepo. You bring in Julius Bololo as well. You have Jeremy James returning. You have Caleb Warren returning. and you add a lot of pieces. So I do even think that they advanced themselves and got better along the offensive line. Now, you do have a really good running back that we've talked about a lot on this show that is leaving. But you do have Ulysses Bennett, the fourth, who I thought had some really good times last year. You bring in Logan Diggs, who, by the way, is going to be hurt, tore his ACL. But it's going to be really tough from a running back room to be able to replace a Quinshon Judkins. But I don't know if Ole Miss offensively does not have one of the better units in not only the SEC, maybe the country. Now, you bring in Juice Wells, who has a lot of hype and a lot of potential. Can Juice Wells build off of what he did 2 years ago? Can he build off the hype that a lot of people have for him? But you pair him up with a guy like Trey Harris, guys, who do you try to take away and limit? If Juice Wells is the guy that we think he can be and doesn't get hurt, doesn't have an off year, who do you try to take away? You have one of the better receiver corps in the country in Oxford. Now, there's another young man that they added that I am very familiar with in covering LSU and just covering the sport. You had a guy like Deion Smith, who is also going to be a really good addition for them. You also have Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee there as well, and you add in Devin Price with that. Guys, offensively, I think they're just going to be just as good. Now, you got to find out quickly because Lane loves to run the football. And with the weapons that they've added offensively, how effectively without Quinshon Judkins, I think is going to be the number one question. How effective are they running the football? Guys, I don't really think that they're going to have a problem, though. I really don't. Now, you add in Logan Diggs, who maybe at earliest or at best comes into next season, maybe mid-October, maybe. We're going to have to find out even through spring what they have in that room. But with everything that they are gaining offensively and all the talent that they have offensively, Jackson Dart, who we'll talk about in a minute, the thing and the missing piece that they think that they were missing was clearly on defense. And the question will be, and why a lot of people think that they're potentially a playoff lock, a team that will be in that final 12. And guys, they might arguably be, is what they're doing on defense. You bring in Walter Nolan, you bring in Princely from Florida, you bring in Chris Paul Jr., you bring in Trey Amos, Key Lawrence, Amarian Walker. Guys, they instantly have gotten better on defense. And with Pete Golding being there, who I think is still a really good play caller, guys, they're one of the top teams in the SEC. I don't think that you can look at them. Now, regardless if it's sustainable or not, I'm not even talking about that. We're talking about this year. Guys, on paper right now, on March the 4th, they're one of the best teams in the SEC. I think you can make the argument they're a top 3 team in the conference. I don't think that that's even a question from an on-field talent aspect. The question will become is, can Jackson Dart take that next step? Now, with all the talent that they've had, you've seen teams like even Alabama last year that had a crap load of talent. You got to let your quarterback play and really take over for you to take that next step. That is the ultimate key. We've seen teams in the past do that. We've seen LSU in 2019. We've seen Alabama, the reverse side of that, literally last year with Jalen Milroe. I do think a lot of this falls on Jackson Dart propelling them to that next level. But I look at their schedule, okay? And I look at what Ole Miss has next year in 2024. They start off the year with Furman. They play Middle Tennessee. They play at Wake Forest. Yawn, double yawn. They have Georgia Southern. Yawn, Kentucky. I think they're better than Kentucky. They go to South Carolina. They're better than South Carolina. They go to LSU, which I think they will go into that game undefeated. Without a shadow of a doubt, they would have beaten Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, and South Carolina. They are going into Baton Rouge 6-0. How do they come off of? Now they got South Carolina and Columbia and LSU and Baton Rouge. Can they? That would be the first test that they have in the year. Can they go back-to-back weeks on the road and get wins? That is it. They will go into Baton Rouge 6-0 and be undefeated. I don't know if they can beat LSU. And you could say I'm biased with that. It is what it is. I'm not going to defend myself on that right now. Playing at night in Death Valley, good luck. That is what I'll tell you. And potentially both teams could be undefeated. But they have LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia. That is the toughest stretch of their schedule. And by the way, they got to go to Florida after they face Georgia, which is never easy to play, even though Billy Napier is there and on the hot seat. It's a tale of two seasons, really. Season one, you don't really play anybody remotely tough. Maybe South Carolina is your toughest game. But the back half of this, LSU on the road, Oklahoma, what is Brent Venables going to do in year 3? How good can Jackson Arnold be at Oklahoma? You got Arkansas on the road. I don't have a lot of faith in them. But you have Georgia at home. And then Florida and Mississippi State. Guys, at worst, I do think, for me, the floor is 10-2. Now, the question will ultimately become, and it's like this when you add a lot of players from the portal. Either you really hit or you really miss. I think they're going to really hit here, man. I think that they're a really good team. I think they're going to be a team that we look at, man, say they have improved based off of what they've done. Guys, Walter Nolan and Princely Yellen, okay, he's just off the bat makes them 10 times better on defense than they were a year ago. 10 times better than where they were just this time last year. Now, you got Perkins that returns, okay, as well. I think they're going to utilize him in a big way. You got Ivy that is returning, who is going to be a senior. And they've completely upgraded in their secondary. I think Trey Amos was one of the least talk about DBs last year at Alabama, who, when he came in that SEC championship game, played like a dog. Was really good. Chris Paul is a tackling machine, the linebacker from Arkansas. I think at worst, I really do believe this. At LSU against Georgia, maybe Oklahoma, maybe. I don't think they can lose to Florida. Year one under Mississippi, Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State, I don't think they lose the Egg Bowl. If you were to ask me right now on paper, do I think that Ole Miss is a playoff team that could be a lock? I would honestly tell you, I would lean more to saying yes than I would be saying no. We'll just have to see how good they can and will be. All right. Brandy Blake, our big-time Rebel fan here. She said the Magnolia Bowl could always go either way, and you and I both know that, Blake. Oh, I'm not saying it couldn't. But that's why I'm saying I can't pick them. I mean, if you're talking about worst-case scenario, like worst-case scenario, they're 10-2. I mean, what, do they slip up to Kentucky? I don't. Maybe. I don't. Did they slip up to South Carolina? Maybe. I don't know, man. I just don't know. She also says, I'm glad we're getting a defense started again. Well, you needed it, and you needed it big time. Well, and you got it. You got it without a shadow of a doubt. All right. It's been fun. Appreciate our good friend Dave Hooker for joining us. This is episode 4 of Around Your SEC, so it's been fun. We'll see y'all tonight for Rufino Joe Show at 6. We'll see you tonight for AYS as well. Until then, y'all have a good one. Peace.